Welcome to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I'm your host, Rihanna Hoffman, and this is a space for women learning to wait well and live fully. Whether you're in the middle of uncertainty, transition, or just figuring out what's next, this podcast is here to remind you you are not behind, not forgotten, and definitely not just waiting. Let's dig into truth, grow in courage, and hold on to hope together. Hey friends, welcome back to the Not Just Waiting podcast. Today I'm joined by Dawn Stevens, an author, speaker, and self-proclaimed fruit pot. Like the main character in her award-winning children's book, The Little Pot, Dawn sees herself as a vessel in the hands of the potter, learning to let him produce the fruit of the Spirit in and through her life. Dawn's journey to identity and purpose didn't happen overnight. She spent years searching through different roles: educator, wife, mom, business owner, and even school principal, trying to define herself by what she carried. But through seasons of being emptied and refilled, God gently showed her that her true purpose isn't about what she holds, but what He grows through her. Through her books, speaking, and her work with EA Books Publishing, Dawn now helps others discover the same truth, that we are all vessels being shaped with a purpose. Her stories point to the God who is never finished with us, even in the waiting, and who uses every season to grow something lasting within us. This conversation is full of wisdom and creativity, and such a beautiful reminder that you are being formed, even now. Let's dive in! Hey friends, welcome to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I'm so glad that you guys are here, and then I get to introduce you to Dawn. She is so adorable, like super cute. Her setup is super cute. If you aren't watching, you should. And if you're like, you have a podcast that's on video, yes, you can watch it on Spotify and YouTube. If this is the first time that I'm telling you this, I'm really sorry. But you really should hop on and watch because her bookcase is adorable. And I'm so glad that we get to chat today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. So excited to be here, Rihanna.
Yay. I'm tickled because I don't know if you know this about me. In another life, I jokingly say I was a teacher, and I had classes of third graders, 8 and 9-year-olds, and occasional 10-year-olds. And they're so sweet most of the time, until it's like March, April, May-ish, and they decide they're grown and not 9. So I've gotten to take a little look at your books, and I'm just like, oh, I would have loved to have read these to my kids. So I'm super excited.
That's awesome. I was a teacher too. So I taught kindergarten first, second. 1 year I tried to teach third grade and they were all smarter than me. So I went back to kindergarten. But yeah, and then I became a school principal. So I had a little school from 2-year-olds through 6th grade. Best job ever. So much fun.
I love that. I also love that you said third graders are smarter than you, because that is a whole vibe.
It is. Everything changes. I'm like, whoa, this is not early childhood anymore. Yeah. So
No.
yeah. So, but I did like being their principal.
I'm
So
sure.
that was fun.
More questions, but I'm gonna ask them not right now
Okay.
because
Yeah.
we'll sit here for hours and talk about education. But instead of education, we're talking about becoming today, which is kind of funny that we chatted about third graders because they're like the perfect in-between season. They're
So
too
true.
big, but not big enough, all at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, they're smart enough that they can understand that when you tell them the first time they should do it, and they can tie their own shoes, and you can take them to the bathroom, and most of the time they don't make a mess. But then they're also not big enough to understand sarcasm, and you still need to cook them things. And they're like the perfect epitome of the in-between.
Yes.
And we're going to be chatting about the in-between today, which is just funny to me. So I have some questions to get us started with our becoming and in-between and not just waiting kind of world that we're going to chat about. So my first question for us today is, who do you sense God has been forming you into in this season, especially in ways that weren't visible or celebrated?
So I love that you asked this question about God forming us, because this is my whole journey. And this is what my books that I've written, my children's books, are all about. So the main characters in my books are these pieces of pottery that the potter creates, like God creates us, and how he uses these pieces and how they would interact with others if they had eyes or voices, and how they interact with the potter. So in the very first book, it was really God showing me who I needed to be.
Mm.
It's my becoming story. It's called The Little Pot. And so the potter makes this little vessel, and the little vessel is all excited to see what it's going to become. Like, why did the potter make me? What is he turning me into? And it deals with our identity, because little pot is so anxious to be something, like to put his identity in something, and he defines himself by what the potter gives it to hold. So the first thing the potter does is put papers inside little pot, and he believes, I'm a smart paper pot. This is the best pot to be. But then the potter makes another vessel for papers and takes his papers away and puts them in that vessel, and little pot is empty and unfulfilled. Then the potter comes along and drops coins inside little pot. And now little pot's like, yes, I'm a rich coin pot. That's who I've become. But the potter makes a pig-shaped vessel and puts coins in that one, and takes little pot's coins away from him and puts them in that piggy bank. And little pot is empty, unfulfilled. I'm useless. I'm nothing again. Then, to make matters worse, the potter fills him with dirt. He does not want to be a dirt pot, but he knows that something is growing inside of him. And so he thinks ahead of the potter, which I often do. I get myself ahead of God all the time. And he's like, oh, I'm just going to be a flower pot. Like, I'm going to worship the potter. I'll be beautiful. I'll grow these flowers. And little pot does that. He grows these cute little yellow and white flowers, and he's feeling beautiful. Till he wakes up one day and his flowers have turned hard and green. They're not beautiful anymore. And he looks at the potter, and the potter says, little pot, you're not a paper pot or a coin pot or a flower pot. Your flowers are becoming strawberries. You are a fruit pot. And so for me, Rihanna, when you talk about what is God doing, what am I becoming in this season? That story was based on my journey of being a teacher, God taking that away from me. Being a business owner, God taking that away from me. Being a salesperson, God took that away from me. And this whole journey of all these different careers, and I defined myself so much by that job or the things that I held. I'm a mom, or I'm a wife, or I'm a businesswoman, or I'm a teacher. And every time I lost one of those roles, I was really confused in my identity. And so it was through all of that that God said, look, I just want you to be a vessel that I can produce my fruit through. So I'm becoming a fruit pot. And it's a continual thing. It's not like you grow those strawberries and then you have them. The potter
Yeah.
picks them, uses them, and tomorrow you have to grow more.
Yep.
And it's a constant state of pruning and growing. And so I often tell people now when they say, what do you do? I'll just say, well, I'm a fruit pot. I grow my potter's fruit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
I absolutely love that so much. And I'm going to try not to yell in your ear. Like, it's a perfect picture. Like, I'm not an 8-year-old, but it's a perfect picture for all of us because we've all been there. We've all been a vessel, and something has been put inside of us that we didn't want, and we might have thrown a fit about it. I have thrown a few fits about it. And even up to the analogy of being a fruit pot and then the potter picking the fruit and then having to start over again. Like, you know what your purpose is, but it's for a season. And so when you produce good fruit, and then the fruit is harvested, like good fruit is supposed to be done with, it either harvest or decay, and we really want it to be harvested. And then you have to start over again. Like, it's such a
Right.
beautiful picture of what our lives look like in that waiting season. Because even in that instance, like, you determined, not you, but like your little fruit pot,
Yeah.
determined what, like, they established, I have made it. And
Mhm.
then the potter picks their fruit and they're like, wait, I have to start over. There's another in between season. And in those seasons, the Lord is literally creating that strawberry plant to be bigger and brighter and beautiful and hold more fruit in each season.
So
Mm.
true. So true. So we actually didn't stop there. Right after I wrote the book, it won awards. It was a big deal, and I'm like, now, oh, I'm an author. I'm an illustrator, right?
Yeah.
So much for the lesson that God taught me, because now I'm putting my identity in that, defining myself. And I was actually doing a book talk at a time when a pastor came to me and said, "Hey, we have a little Christian school. We need a principal. Would you consider coming and being the principal?" And I was like, "No, like that's not what I want to be. Like, I'm an author now and I'm doing this." And God was saying, "I'm not emptying you, but I'm asking you to empty yourself." And so I was doing this book talk with a group of students and teaching them to be fruit pots. So I always start off with, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And we were talking about all the roles that they could hold. And at the end of it, I say, "Well, it's okay if you'd be a policeman or a ballerina," or whatever they told me. I said, "But you also have to be a fruit pot." And this day, I couldn't remember all the things that the kids told me they wanted to be at the end of the talk. So I looked around the room and I saw a teacher and a principal standing in the room. And I said, "You could be a teacher or you might be a principal, but you still need to be a fruit pot." And as I said it, I could hear the Holy Spirit in my head going, "But you won't." And so I was like, "Oh no, Lord," like, so I kept praying about it, and I finally gave in and said, "Yes, I'll be the principal." So I took Little Pot and the story with me into the school. And as we were teaching it to the kids, I realized that they were seeing fruit as something they possessed.
Ooh.
We did a little character ed program, and they began to like develop pride in, like, "Hey, Mrs. Stevens, I have patience. Hey, Miss Stevens, look at me. I'm being kind today." And I'm like, "No, no, no, you don't get to hold it. Your fruit is for somebody else." And so that's when we worked with the students to write the second book, which was called The Teapot. And it's about a little vessel that pours into others and serves. Because in this story, Teapot convinces Little Pot to hold his strawberries. "Don't give them away. I want to keep my tea. It's mine." And obviously that doesn't work because the strawberries rot and the tea grows stale. And they need the potter's forgiveness, which he does willingly, and prunes Little Pot and washes Teapot from the inside out. So every stain is gone, just as God does for us. And so we did the teapot. And then as I continued to be their principal, and we had Little Pot, we had Teapot, I began to tell the kids, "I want you to do more than just show love and joy and peace to others. At some point, I want you to tell them about Jesus. I want you to tell them your own story. And that's what it means to shine." And so we wrote the third book, which is called The Oil Lamp, and it's about carrying the potter's light. It's not our light, it's the potter's light, because he lights this little lamp. And so I know all your listeners can't see it, but I went to Israel and asked them for an oil lamp from the time that Jesus was a little boy, so that I could take it back and show my students, because we were writing the book. And I went to the antique dealer and he said, "Well, would you like the set?" And I was like, "They come in twos?" And he's like, "No, no, no." He said, "Every oil lamp, it's very small. It fits in the palm of your hand like our flashlights today." Said, "But it would quickly run out of oil and burn out," which I was doing as a principal. I was facing burnout all the time. He said, "But every oil lamp came with a small jar. And the small jar fit right in the top of the oil lamp, so that when it got a crack, the oil could seep through and refuel the lamp so it could keep burning." So, of course, I said, "Sure, I'll take the set." Came home, we wrote the book, The Oil Lamp, and started talking to the kids about shining. And then in 2020, the school closed.
Mm-hmm.
We moved. I'm in a new town, no friends, no church family, no job. My kids had all grown up, and I'm sitting in this empty apartment going, "I don't know how to be a fruit pot because I have nobody to show the fruit of the Spirit to. I don't know how to be a teapot because I can't pour into anybody. And I've been the oil lamp and I've totally burned out. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." And God was saying, "Hey, remember that small jar? Now is your time. And so in the story of the small jar, all the other vessels ask the potter to heal it, to fix the crack. And the potter doesn't because it's the crack that he needs. So he fills it with oil and sets it on top of the oil lamp. And so this story is really about how God uses our wounds to give the Holy Spirit or oil to others and seep through. So, yeah, so each book has kind of been a different season of my life that we've been talking about becoming something new for God.
Mhm. Mm. All the hair on my arm just stood up when you were chatting about all these things, because I think a lot of us can relate to feeling all of those things. Even when you were chatting about your kiddos being like, "This patience is mine." It's like, "No, no, no, you missed the point." And,
Right.
like, I think the Lord looks at us and go, "No, no, 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 you missed the point." And so I love how he took you on that journey and your students. I think it's cool that your students got to help you, like, of being each step and each especially when you get to the jar. I didn't know that about an oil lamp. I have never been to Israel, and I wouldn't have that's an odd thing that I wouldn't have known, and I think that puts scripture in a different light for me. Now I'm gonna go read the story of the ladies with the lamps again and be like, "Wait, what?" Um, so that's brewing over here in my brain. But even, like, the crack being so important, because I think
Mhm.
a lot of times even we feel broken and after we've been burnt out and we're like, "There's nothing else you can do." And the Lord does look at us and be like, "No, no, no, this is the part I needed."
Yeah,
And I think in our becoming seasons, in the in between, in the waiting, when we feel the most broken, that's what the Lord gets to use.
so true. Yeah, yeah. And between each book, between each vessel, there was just waiting. Even, each time little pot was dumped and emptied, there was the waiting. So even the book, there's a line in the book that says, little pot trusted the potter, so he waited to be filled with something new. And that's a repeated line in the book because I just felt like I I feel like I've spent more of my life waiting
Mhm.
for the next season or the next thing God wants to do. And because it's those times that just feel so long, but yet they're so important because those are the periods that God is doing something new, right? I'm creating something new. Like he says that in his word. And he needs those seasons of rest and wait to really begin to prepare you for what's coming next. Of all of the seasons that I've been through, I can look back and God didn't waste any of them.
Mhm.
So today I'm running a publishing company and it's so cool to look back and see how every experience is being put to use at this time. When I left teaching and started running a business and got into sales, my job was to sell books to teachers at that time. And so because I had been a teacher, I was successful at that. And then because I had, developed sales and run a business, I was successful as a private school principal. And, working with the kids and developing those stories have now made me a successful publisher.
Yeah.
So it's not like God wasted 1 second. He never does.
Nope. And I think a lot of times I don't know about you, but I get in seasons when I'm like sitting on my couch eating peanut butter cookies and I'm like, "Lord, what are you doing? What is the purpose?" And I've spiraled and I've had a full blown meltdown. And I'm like, "This was not the plan. This wasn't it." And then you look, a few months, a few weeks, a few years later, and you're like, "Oh, I
Yeah,
needed that skill. Got it."
right. You did know what you were doing. Who knew?
Yeah,
That's
but
what
you
I
know what
tell God all the time. I'm like, oh, who knew you knew what you were doing the whole time?
Yeah. I'm
Why
like,
didn't I believe?
exactly. And it's one of those things because we're human and we forget that he is in fact the creator of the universe. It's like, yeah, I can do whatever I want. You were the one that doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah. Oh. Or you didn't need my help? I was here to help.
Yes.
Yes.
I feel that on an even deeper level of like, okay, Lord, what do you need my help doing? He's like, I
Right.
don't need your help.
Yeah.
I'm here
Yeah.
to help you. Try again.
Yes. And that's, I think, why he gave me the illustration. Well, he gave it to everybody in the Bible of the potter and the clay,
Hmm.
because the clay is so helpless without the potter. right? But even in the stories, these little vessels often think that they, have the answers or they can do it without the potter and they question what the potter's doing as we do. But I also think God just loves that about us because he created us for that fellowship with him. And so it's
Yeah,
a sweet walk.
it is. I do love that you let your pots in your books talk to the potter. Um, because I mean, I know it's a story, don't get me wrong,
Yeah, I know.
but there's like such I think sometimes we forget that we do have that relationship with the Lord. Like he sent Jesus so that we could have that relationship. The veil was torn. Like we are now have all the access that we would want slash need slash desire, even when we're having pity parties on our couch with peanut butter cookies. Just yell and scream and just cry
Yeah.
at the Lord and be like, "Hi, I don't like this." And he goes, "I know. I'm aware."
And it's interesting that you bring that up because there's this taboo in children's books that when you're using an inanimate object with and giving it human qualities, like the pot, you can't have that inanimate object interact with human. Like you can have human characters and you can have inanimate humors, but they're not supposed to react. And so I've had editors come to me and say they can't talk to the potter. And I'm like, "Oh, yes, they can." And in the illustrations, we never see anything of the potter except his hands. Um, so it's very but it's a very big message that this is the Lord and this is who we need to talk to. But there's also a sense in the stories that the potter knows what the vessels are thinking, and it's a delicate way to write for children because the stories are very tangible in that a very young child can understand without understanding the metaphor. And we were just talking about sarcasm and things with third graders. So young children don't always grasp the metaphor. And it was fun to just watch the like kindergartners or 5-year-olds and 4-year-olds read the story of the little pot and just love the story. They just love watching the little pot get filled and emptied. And then about 3rd grade, they're like, "Mrs. Stevens, this is really deep. Like, I'm getting this." And I even got a letter from one of the students when they graduated from high school one time, and they sent me a note and said, "Mrs. Stevens, I loved the little pot with you and the little pot when I was in elementary school. But now that I'm going to college, I get it. I'm gonna
Mm,
be a fruit pot." And so it was just that
mm,
meaning that just kind of, evolves and gets deeper the way God's parables do with us. We get more and more the more we
I adore that. I think that's incredible because you're not only the Lord enabled you to teach, like with your skill set that you had from teaching littles, which is a skill set, um, to understand what they can comprehend, but also speak to the big kids and their parents. And so, like, we're having this conversation about your book, and I'm like feeling things, and I'm not 6. And it would not be like for me, it would not be unusual for me to pick up a children's book because, there's a
yeah,
background there. But it is pretty unusual for an adult to pick up a children's book if they don't have a child. And
right.
so you've made a connector that they can see the Lord in their life while they're teaching it to their kids. And you're creating a bridge in those seasons that they may not have had, which I think is so cool.
Well, let's say God did it.
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
you give me a lot of credit for knowing that, but I didn't. I just was responding to a story that God gave me. And I'm like, "Okay." And really it took me being an adult and being filled and emptied and realizing I was putting my identity in things that I held to really even develop that story. And then it just kind of came to me one night and I was like, "Oh, that's who I am." And so put it in a story, but yeah. I mean, that's what he does. That's his parables. He puts things in stories. Yeah.
We've chatted a lot about expectations and timelines and identity and calling and who God is inviting you to be now. Is there anything that we've missed that you think would be important? This isn't me being like, "Hi, what would you like to tell our audience?" But we've chatted a lot about like even being the fruit pot and having your identity. So, like, is there a specific thing, like there was a turning point for you when you realized, oh, this is what the Lord is asking of me. This is the thing I need to set down so that so that I can be who he created me to be.
I think there have been those moments all throughout. I still have a tendency to say, okay, this is mine, or this is what you've given me. I'll do my best, and I'm striving, to please him, which is a whole nother podcast, right? But for right now, like I think I continue to write with books. I have one coming out this summer that's The Teapot Calling the Kettle Black. And it really deals with our world and that we don't accept somebody that has a different opinion than us, or that we don't allow people to think about things differently and have different views. And so there's kind of a battle in this book between the potter drinking coffee and tea. And anyways, it's kind of funny, um, but so I'm working on that, but I'm also with I just recently took over EA Books Publishing. EA stands for En Kankamna Adonai, which means I love you, Lord. And a friend of mine has been running this company since 2010, and in January she turned it over to me. And it is such a wonderful season for me to allow other people's stories to get published and reach people. And so that's kind of where most of my effort God is using me through today and what I'm becoming. So I'm becoming a publisher, but just another vessel that God is using. So yeah.
Mm, I love that. When you decided you were going to be a teacher, you probably didn't dream of being a publisher, did you?
No, no, being an author and illustrator was probably something from my childhood. Like that dream never died. It kind of went through everything. But my path to get there was so different than how God took me there. Um, so yeah, I could have never foreseen the path that God took me on and where he did. And if he'd let me lead, man, we would have screwed it up so many times. So
Yeah. There is a question that we ask most of the time on the podcast because it's called the Not Just Waiting podcast. There's two types of waiting. There's passive waiting and active waiting. We chatted that I like peanut butter cookies on my couch. That is my version of passive waiting. I'm also learning that passive waiting doesn't always end up with me not sitting on my couch, but I can be doing productive things while passively waiting and resting.
mm,
It's not just me eating peanut butter cookies. It's me resting because he told me to sit down and chill out for a minute. But then there's active waiting when we're doing something, whether that's sending a note, making a social media post, publishing books, teaching small people, all of those kind of things. So in your current season, how are you waiting well, whether that's actively or passively?
oh, well, waiting well is the key because I think I do when you talk about the passive and it's a new season working at home, right? When
Hmm.
you don't see people, you know what that's like. Going from being a principal where I had constant hundreds of children, teachers in my office all day running around me, that busy day of a school, which is nonstop, and you're always thinking about the safety issues and the behavioral issues and everything. Your mind's always going. So there's no waiting. You don't have time to wait for anything. And then to just flip on a dime, COVID hits and you're sitting and you have no one and you're in that quiet stage. Um, there's still an adjustment. I feel like I go through some days where because my job doesn't involve interacting, like it's great to be on podcasts because I
Yeah.
get to talk to somebody. But that time, sometimes it's just easy to just be like, nobody cares if I get this done today. Nobody's really going to read that blog anyways. Nobody really needs to care about that Facebook post. I'm going to go watch a movie, right? And
Yes.
you just
Yes.
want to stay in bed. And so at first, I think when I started this, I would feel really guilty, like, oh, that was just really passive waiting. That was
Hmm.
a waste of my time. But then I had an author tell me one time that, authors need stories in their lives. So spending a few hours watching a movie is research. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna stay there. Like, that gives me the excuse. But I also feel like that I've learned to appreciate those quiet moments. I think the key when we're passive waiting is maybe not is to be passive is okay, to accept it, not feeling like I have to be active all the time because I can be a striver and just do busy work to be busy
Hmm.
and I don't hear from God. And so I think in the passive moments, I'm learning to spend a lot of my day just listening, not even like trying to do Bible studies and fill in the blanks all the time, but to read scripture and then just to sit in silence, not with the TV on, but in hearing from God. So how I wait now, I think is, to intentionally make time for wait and not just be active all the time, but to appreciate the passive. God needs us to be passive so he can be active in
Yes.
our life.
Yes, that right there. God needs us to be passive so that he can be active in our life.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I definitely am I need to get this done and this done and this done. And I work from home as well. And so in my, 5 minutes that I'm waiting for something to download, I'll go fold 3 loads of laundry and unload the dishwasher and make this and do this and go cut the grass.
Mhm.
And then I come back and I'm like, that I shouldn't have been gone that long. And then I'm hot, I'm sweaty, and I'm tired, and I don't wanna do the thing that I was supposed to be doing. Whereas if I
Yeah.
had just waited and taken a couple seconds and just said, "Okay, Lord, what do you have for me to do? Because you made this slower than necessary. What do you have for me to do in this?" It would be so much easier for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Well, is there anything else you wanna share with our listeners today?
I don't. I don't have anything else. They can definitely get a hold of the books. Anywhere books are sold, they're not for sale on Amazon or whatever. But they can get the best rate at my website, which is dawnstevensbooks.com. Stevens is with a PH. And just come, there you can also see the publishing that we do and meet the pot characters. And yeah, so I would love to have people visit me there and hear their stories and connect with them in any way they'd like.
That sounds like so much fun. We're going to leave the links to your website and where your books are in our show notes so you guys can click below and click on her name and it'll pop up. And you can order all of her books. And Reagan/my mother, if you're listening, Doodle is getting all of them, which is my niece. So, super excited. This has been so fun and a joy, and, like, my brain is going 100 different directions because 'cause I'm like, "Wait, which vessel am I? Which stage of vessels am I in? And have we started over again? Like, what does this look like?" But your story is really powerful and impactful, and thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's
So
been a
glad
joy.
you're doing what you do.
Oh, thank you. It has been so much fun and a privilege, and thank you so much, and maybe we'll get to do this again. We'll see when
Okay.
your next books
Sounds
comes
good.
out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, friends, please go click on her website and go order all of her books and read all of her things and tell her thank you for jumping on the podcast because she's taking her time out of her day to come say hey to us. And it's been so fun. And we will see you guys next week. Bye, friends. Thanks for listening to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I hope today reminded you that even in the in-between, God is working and you are not alone. If this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend? And don't forget to hit follow so you never miss a moment of truth, hope, and real conversation. You can find me on Instagram at rihanna.ivy.hoff and join the community over on Substack for deeper reflections and weekly encouragement. Until next time, take heart, friend. God is in the waiting with you.